Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong and welcome to the back office teardown lab. You can see we're continuing from where we left off with the giant clock, Andrew's giant clock kit. And we've done all the surface mount components, and hope you learnt a lot about that. If you've missed that video, please click in one of the links and go back and have a look, because that's a bit of fun, a bit of learning for you, a bit of learning for me, to be honest with you. And we have all the other parts to do, which are pretty much through-hole parts. And there's a lot of things like LEDs that I kind of tend to cock up and get the polarity wrong, and that might find some amusement for you. First things first though is this. This is a horror of all horrors. Look, really bent up pins on this thing. So I'm just going to be very cautious. In fact, this might be one of the first things I solder, because then it's sort of out of the way and safe and done. It's really been through the wars in the bag, and I don't want to basically I don't want to chance it. I'm just gonna I've gone quiet because I'm that nervous that you can destroy these, and it's an annoying part to break. Okay, good. That was alright though, didn't it? It wasn't that bad. Don't know what I was panicking for. Look, it's okay. I wonder where it goes. I'm just seeing it. It would go on from this side, by the way, and a little capacitor there. I'm looking at this side, right? It goes there, but you can see here there's a whole load of solder jumpers. Those are definitely worth putting in advance. But I'm also quite aware that I don't have any spare wire to make jumpers for. So I might take these couple of resistors. There's a couple of resistors here that need doing, because once I put them in, I'll trim those off, and they'll probably give me a bit of a leg to use as a jumper. So I'm just going to bend this over and chuck it in my component tester of magic, because I would quite like to know what the value of the resistors are. Testing. Oh, what? Oh, it's just me. When this thing doesn't work, it's nearly always user error, or shall we say loser error, if you're used to read Dilberts. 10Ks. These are 10Ks. Brilliant. Nice and simple. In fact, they're both 10Ks, I can say. So I just have a look, and I can see where they go right away. Hurrah. So just going to poke them through now. Bit of crustiness on that one. Bit over varnished, but that's okay. We won't blame them. I can't remember how much this was, by the way. I think it was probably a £5 or something. I'll have a look to see if there's any numbers on the kit or anything, and that way if you want to buy one, you can sort of Google it and see where you can get it from. Not bother me with, can you put a link? Can you put a link to an eBay thing that disappears instantly? Yeah, it's all in Chinese, so sorry, can't help you. So as we're doing through hole, we're probably going to not use so much solder paste and just go through to the sort of old school soldering wire. I'll check those. Yeah, they're sitting okay. These don't have really huge legs, so I'm going to have to cut them. Do some close cropping to get my jumper wires off them. Let's do some close cropping. Cropped. Crop till you drop. So there's our solder jumper things. Wires we're going to use as solder jumpers, if they fit, of course. Sometimes you get 0 ohm resistors in kits, and those are really quite welcome. Oh, I can't. It's not going to reach, is it? Or is it? Or is it? Let's turn it over and have a look. Is it? Isn't it? It is just about. If I'm cautious, I think I can just about solder that. Where? Let me just see where it is, and then I'll show you boys and girls at home. It's here. Just inside there, and the wires are barely, they're not even protruding on the right one, and they're protruding on the left. So that one's good. That was a bit of luck. Just give it a little bit of extra cooking. What's cooking? What's cooking? Hey, you're good looking. What you got cooking? How about cooking up a jumper 5? Okay, let's do it. There's our jumper 5 in. Let's see if we're lucky, and that one kind of is protruding. Oh, that's really protrudy. We're good. We're good, boys and girls. Yes, we are. Right here. But you can. Did you see it? Did you see where I was going with it? It's quite hard to sort of spot things, isn't it? I'm sure. I don't know. You know, if you're looking at this through a big telly, you probably can spot it easier than me. But for me, I'm finding it a little bit difficult, I have to admit. So jumper 1 and 2. I don't know if we're going to run out of jumper wire here, unless I can really economise on this. I shouldn't. I did a kit, I think it was this morning, and I should have been a bit more cautious with my offcuts. Really, I need to get myself a gauge, not a gauge, a roll of wire of this gauge, and not a gauge. It's a different thing to want. Right, I think I could get one of these smaller jump. Ow! Yee! Yeah, remember they're sharp like a pin. If you're not bending them at the right angle, you're gonna stab yourself. No, forget it. Forget that one. We'll find a bit of wire from something else. Let's not worry. Jumper 3. Ah. Come on, I want to get this kit done so I can go on the Beechams. We've lost a leg. But I'm going to solder the one that is sticking through. And then just check that. Oh no, he's there. There's a tiny little leg sticking out there. We got it. We got it right there. Alright. 2 more jumpers need to be acquired before I can wrap this bad boy up. So let's see what we've got. A couple of capacitors here. This is a 30. A 30 picofarads, yes. And this one, is that also required to be a 30 picofarads? Yes, it is. So we can put them straight in, and we might get a bit of leggage from those two. Picofarad. And actually, while I'm popping them in, I'm going to see if I can put this crystal in, because it's an easy one to fit. It's right next to them. I suspect the crystal is going to try to jump off, so I'm just going to bend its legs ever so slightly. The crystal wants to stay, just the capacitors now are being unruly. So there's our legs. Going to try a bit of the old solder paste, I think, on the old capacitors, just because I want to pull their legs up. You'll see what I mean now, because I know they're fallen through. I'm just going to pull the non-hot leg while I melt the solder paste on the hot leg, and that way, you see, I don't need an extra pair of hands to push some solder wire in it. I did say in one of my earlier videos, I think, about this technique, but never got to sort of demonstrate it, but now I can, and that's the demonstration. Again, while I'm at it, while I'm waiting for the capacitor to cool down, I can actually just get that crystal in. So the crystal's done too. Now I get my soldering wire and finish off the job. Done. Done. And if there's anything that looks a bit dry, you like the crystal, maybe add a bit more, maybe add a bit more. Actually, it's all fine anyway. Cut those legs off, and then we have our final set of jumper wires. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's flip over the PCB. So we've just got these jumpers to do here, jumper 1 and jumper 2. Tweezers. Do you think I need one of those sort of like nurses to sort of give me my tools? That would be quite good, wouldn't it? Quite novel. And it doesn't have to be a female nurse. I'm not sexist. Ah! We lost one of our jumpers there. Whew. Fortunately, we had a spare. And it's not the last time we're going to need them. I can see a few more bloody jumpers on this board. Especially this one. There's a jumper 8, which is underneath that IC right there. That one would be nice to sort of get done, because it just, I don't really mind so much if there's jumpers that aren't in the way, but these ones are preventing me from getting on with it, with the good stuff. Oh, and they're tedious at that. I think, Brian, power crazy, you need to tell me where I can get a roll of, you know, suitable gauge wire for this purpose, because I know it's going to be driving your OCD, your PCB OCD, wild. So one of those jumpers went through, one didn't. So the one that's gone through, so I've got the board in my hands now, and I'm going to apply, again, solder paste this time, because I just don't have any hands free. And I'm going to know when it's done, because it'll get burnt. Aha! Ooh! Yes, I did get a little bit burnt. A little bit burnt. Ooh! Ooh! Look at that. No, it's all right. That's just a mark from me pushing down on it. It wasn't hot enough to burn, but hot enough for you definitely would feel it. Just looking at the bloody board, though, I don't know. These things. I could just as easily just jump these on the other side, just directly with flat bits of wire. But, oh well. I see the camera's freaked itself out again. It likes to do that. The poor things do get confused. They work by doing magic stuff with basically seeing if all of the pixels through the CCD are kind of aligned or blurry, and then they move the lens in and out a tiny amount to actually compensate for that. So what happens is certain materials will cause that shift to occur in different ways. Bah, bloody thing! Look, just this stupid thing. I'm getting really annoyed. Again, that causes them difficulty, because they're really quite sure then. They're thinking, yep, this is definitely in focus, when clearly you can see, like up there, it's not. And then it's struggling because it's trying to keep the aperture of the camera a particular fixedness, because we're running on a fixed aperture, to try to stop it from going in and out, which means there's less light going in. Again, and they don't like that either. So they've got a lot of issues. Cameras, they're trying to solve a lot of problems when you're trying to do some video with them, and we don't give them enough credit, to be honest with you. Right. I feel my blood pressure rising, and that's not good when you're poorly. You can feel it directly in your brain. Right. Phew. Now that's all those fiddly jumpers up there out of the way. We'll do our, well, shall we just try to just get our jumper 8 done out of the way? Let's get that jumper 8 done out of the way, and then we can solder in some fun stuff. I'm glad you've been bearing with me so far on this, just to show you though really how tedious it is to do jumpers if you don't have the correct roll of wire. So try to get hold of some, please. Please get hold of some and tell me what you needed to get it and where you got it, and I'll get onto Matlin or somewhere and try to get some for myself. Right, I think, oh shoot, bloody thing. Such a funny old day, isn't it? It's a really funny old day. Right, holding that in with my finger now. I'm not going to let it get away. I really don't want it to get away anymore. Solder paste. Again though, the solder paste is a good old trick. I think that's something I think that you'll... Good. You should get some as well. And then you can walk away with that bit of knowledge. That's a good bit of knowledge. Out of all the bad things I've showed you today, bad habits, I think the solder paste trick is the one good. There's something good to come out of this video, it'll be that. Right, now we're ready to do the nice bit of soldering, the type that we like. So if you're soldering at something like a display or a dip, as in dual inline, go with the technique of doing the opposites first. That way, make sure the device is sitting nicely, and then that way, once you're done like that, even if the board flops around or whatever, it doesn't matter, because you know that that component is well and truly fixed. There we go. I think in one of my earlier videos I did a radio kit and I couldn't get it working, and I still haven't got it working, and I kind of feel bad about that. So I hope that this one will work. Good. That's good. Now it's starting to look a bit, you know, clock-like. This is kind of easy, isn't it? Get that in there. Look at that, there's another bloody jumper behind that thing too. What a git. Sort those out. Putting it in the wrong way round that time. One pin here. I pulled it too far out. There we go. That's it. Again, you can see that there. I'm holding it and it's awkward and I don't have enough fingers, but Mr. Solder Paste, opposites attract. That's a nice job, that is. Nice job indeed. So that's held firm, so I can just go in now and just wazzle through them all. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. That wasn't too bad, was it? So I'm just looking. I'm not just singing. I'm fiddling with this hand, looking through these components. I'm trying to work out which will give me my best yield of jumper material. Looking at this too, I'm kind of confused a bit by the nomenclature of electrolytic capacitors. There's no positive or negative, but there is a shaded region, and I'm sort of like, well, what does that mean? It means it's something you could Google, doesn't it, really? I think the shaded region though means the negative part. Could be wrong. Probably am wrong. So just have a quick look-see. Yeah. It does mean though we could make our jumpers out of the. It's really quite a long leg. Let's try that. Let's see if that'll satisfy one of our jumper needs. We've got 3 jumpers that we still need to put on there. I just poked that into my finger. This one is almost doable with this sort of sizing thing, but not quite. It's just not quite there. Still have to manually. I'm trying a different technique now. You can see we wasn't too happy with the previous jumpering technique, so we're trying making a staple. Basically, you can see it's just like a staple. I wonder if you could use a staple. Probably not. Staple is made of stainless steel, not solder. We'll not solder in. Pritt stick. There we go. so hot. Good. That was a satisfactory jumpering experience, I think. There's blood everywhere. It's literally made of my own flesh and blood. Let's get this one now. See if we can make a better jumper this way. That's a good technique, isn't it? Bend it in the old tweezers. You've got like almost a gauge. You could laser cut a gauge on your tweezer to give you your different sizes, but that is good. That is the correct way to do it when you've got enough material. I'm almost thinking a jumper wire kit should have straight lengths of wire. I don't think you could buy a roll of wire and use it as jumper wire, right? But it's still a roll, and that's still a pain, and you'd have to unroll it and everything. But if you're going to make a jumper wire kit, I would have it basically straight lengths, so that you could then do that, bend it over the back of a tweezers or a special tool that came with the kit and get it right. So that's pretty good. Electrolytics aside, we'll just continue with all the other bits. So this is your speaker. Comes dual footprinted, fortunately. You can see it must have had a couple of options, manufacturing options of what kit, or what sort of part they would put in the kit, and fortunately they've given you both on the PCB, so put it in the appropriate holes on your PCB. Just a tiny bit, there we go. It's a tiny bit dry. You couldn't see that because it was zoomed out, but it was dry because there's two holes next to each other and one hole was sucking it all up, sucking it up off the other one. So we've got some buttons. I mean, they're pretty much no-brainers. But I do notice there's quite a few things on the footprint that I'm not sure we do have. But we'll worry about those when we get to it. I mean, there's nothing left in the box. So we've got all the parts of the kit in front of us, so hopefully they're just different alternatives for certain things. I'm quite aware now that I've almost exclusively started using the solder paste. If you got it, use it. Seriously, it does a good job. It really does. It's got lots of flux in it. Good stuff. Done. It wasn't tricky at all, was it? What else? So we've got our electrolytics that we don't know the polarity of, or rather what that symbol means. But we do have a couple of diodes here. And they're big old diodes. And they almost look like we can use, again, they're not quite, I think they're quite spaced right, but let's try to use the gauge. I think actually using a gauge anyway is fine, because even if they're not quite right, it's definitely a lot easier to try to put them in with square legs than you know, just a floopy floop. There we go, that's those two, pop them in. They're looking nice, aren't they? They certainly are, sir. Ah, look, I can see what's going on the back. Remember I was confused about something on the back? They basically got surface mount footprints for the same diodes. So you could put the surface mount ones on if you want instead. So I wasn't missing components, I was just... that was the manufacturer's choice. One looking a little bit dry. Give them an extra bit of squiz. Again, I am aware that I'm not quite zoomed in enough for you to get that. Appreciate that detail, but don't worry. We'll go in a bit deeper on a future thing. Probably the electrolytics. But you know, through holes shouldn't have any novelty for you anymore. You've seen me do a lot of through hole stuff. I mean, that's just Oh, should be quite blasé about the whole through-hole process. But don't worry, it does look like we've got 70 LEDs to sort of pump through in a minute. Jumper 9 right there. Oops. Ah, he's lost the jumper. There we are. That's got in nice, stayed in. That's a good job, did it alright. One more switch. Ah, there it is. Pop that in. Now's a good time, isn't it? Get it out of the way. Go on. Join me on this adventure on this particular component. I thought I was soldering it, but I was just touching up some existing joints. It didn't need touching up. No, I think I'm going to add a tiny bit more paste on these two. They're looking, they've absorbed a lot there. They were looking like a little bit dry. There we go. Again, that's belt and braces. It was soldered electrically fine. We're just making it very mechanically strong, which is also a good thing. I don't think anybody's ever going to complain about that. Okay. So I think we're down to electrolytics and some of these red LEDs. So what I think I'll do, if you don't mind, I really fancy going and have a little bit of a cup of tea. I know this video is probably a little bit shorter than most of them, but that's the sort of main complexity out of the way. I'm going to go have a cup of tea, settle down, and finish this off, I think, in the next video. We'll make the final push. If you please bear with me, we'll make the final push in the next video and run the old electrical test. Thank you very much for watching. Like, share and subscribe to anyone you think will have a lot of help or any sort of help making their kits by watching this video. Thank you for watching.